Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Top Performance Strength Podcast. It's been a couple of months since we've done an episode. I'm joined here by the Declan Peterson. What's going on, Declan?
I'm doing okay.
Danny Wiz with the most epic mustache we've seen in a minute here. We're gonna have to talk about that as the show progresses. And Tom Konzemius making a guest appearance back in town for the weekend from Quincy. Fellas, how's everybody doing this morning?
Fantastic.
Not too bad. Happy to be
Not
on
bad.
here.
Good. All right. First and foremost, let's get the stash out of the way. Danny, tell us about the stash.
Honestly,
What made you decide you wanted to grow the stash?
it just felt fitting. When I got hurt and I had my PRP shot for my elbow in the fall, I told myself I was going to shave once I was able to get back on the mound. And this past Monday was the first day I had my bullpen, and felt like the stash was a fitting way to get the journey started.
I love it.
Go.
We're going to talk about the journey in a second too, and kind of the main premises of today's show is just to, give the audience an idea of kind of like what your journey is, each individual's journey, where you guys have come from, kind of where you are now and where you're going. I know you guys have kind of battled. Danny, you've battled quite a few injuries throughout your college career over the last couple of years. Tom, you kind of recently mentioned a couple of struggles you're having recently and got some big decisions you got to make in terms of where you want to go with your college career going into next year. And then Declan will lead off with you right now, and you want to kind of tell everybody as far as where you are and what the plans are. I know you got some indie ball tryouts coming up, so we're trying to progress from the Pecos League to play in a more challenging league going into the summer.
Yep. So I'll just give a little recap of my college career. So I wound up going to Concordia University, Chicago, Division III baseball school on the far west side. For my first 2 years, didn't have a ton of success and did not get a lot of playing time, and I wound up getting hurt my sophomore year. So I wound up making the tough decision to transfer to Franciscan University, which is in Steubenville, Ohio, and another Division III school. There I wound up getting quite a few more opportunities to play, especially my junior year. That was a COVID year though, so that kind of, was not optimal, definitely for my progression in baseball. But senior year, wound up having a good year. At my time at Franciscan is really where I found my niche as being a utility player, and I really accentuated my defensive capabilities. And at my time there, I played corner outfield, shortstop, second base, and then I wound up being all-conference third baseman my senior year. And then most recently, after I graduated college last year, I wound up playing for the Santa Fe Fuego in the Pecos League. I played 5 different positions last year, between second, third, corner outfield. So I had a solid season, not a great season, definitely not a bad season, solid overall first season. And then for this year, I got a lot of tryouts coming up. First one that I'll definitely be going to is the Pioneer League tryouts in Arizona, April 1st through the 4th. I'll be going to the Frontier League, league-wide tryouts in Kentucky, April 25th and 26th. And then I plan on going to a couple individual team tryouts around here, including the Boomers, the Slammers, Winnie City Thunderbolts. And I was also contacted by a scout with the Rockland Boulders in the Frontier League about a possible tryout date in May as well. So we're progressing, like Kip said, we're trying to move up levels in indie ball from hopefully get into the Pioneer League or the Frontier League, and God willing, if things work out, then either move up to American Association by the end of the year, and hopefully by the start of next year sign a minor league contract and finally get into affiliated ball.
Yeah. So what do you think? What has been the biggest focus for you this past off season in terms of your development that you feel is going to help you gain that extra edge and get to that next level in your playing career?
I think the biggest things is just keeping the goal. Something my best friend Jacob told me a long time ago that has really helped me. And my 3 goals coming into the offseason, I write on every single training program that I have, is number 1, move better, number 2, throw harder, and number 3, hit more consistently for power. So, my main focus every day with whatever I'm doing is making sure whatever I'm doing is prioritized and oriented towards those 3 goals. And I've done a really good job of, exploring and experimenting and using different resources and options between coaches and knowledge I've learned and friends that I have and coaches that I know throughout the baseball world to progress and really capitalize on those 3 things. So I've had some hiccups here and there, and velocity and progression and skill acquisition is not linear by any means, you know. It's very up and down, but I feel like I've done a really good job of staying consistent and keeping those main things the focus.
Yeah, you talk about moving better kind of being one of the most important things that you prioritize. Like you had
100%.
mentioned, it's like it's the number one, first and foremost thing,
Yeah.
which I would agree with you 100%. It's the number one thing that I place an emphasis on with everybody that I work with, especially with a younger population. It's all about setting them up for future success, right? So we can make further advancements in their programming as they progress in high school and into college, and then eventually to the level that you're at right now. So, like, what are some of the things aside from what we've done to tweak your programming? But I also know that you see Dr. David Fu on a regular basis to help you move better. Can you speak to some of these things and what you've done to help you kind of improve your overall movement quality and minimize any type of pain or injury that you've had in the
Yeah.
past, and basically stay healthy this off season, right?
Yeah, I think some of the biggest things have been, the first thing would definitely be PRI, Postural Restoration Institute. A lot of stuff from PRI and getting myself unstuck from positions that I get caught in, you know, like right hip stance, and that's been one of the biggest things, is correcting my pelvic and rib cage positioning. And it's helped me so that I can train as hard as I want to, as often as I want to, and have minimal to no pain or injury this off season. So that's been a huge thing that I highly recommend people check out PRI. Working with Dave Fu, it's been great also for progressing, because I've realized that, you know, I have been lifting, you know, since I was about 12, 13 years old, and been very consistent with it since I was 15 or so. And then once I met Kip when I was around 18, you know, I've kind of really progressed in the weight room. So I've learned that I had to get a little bit more specific this off season with what I wanted to accomplish. And Dave has really helped me figure out which variations of exercises I want to progress, and what the benefits are of each exercise that I'm doing. What am I specifically trying to target through each movement that I choose to pick and put in my programming?
Yeah.
You know, doing range of motion and mobility work every single day, and just staying consistent and coming up with a routine that I can always fall back on has been really good. And having multiple tools in my toolbox in order to correct problems, whether it's hitting trigger points and using the massage gun, or using foam rolling, or PRI, or you know, rolling out with a lacrosse ball, or breathing exercises, anything in particular in that realm. It's just great to have multiple tools in my toolbox that I can utilize in order to ensure that I'm pain-free and I can move as best as I can, so that I can have longevity in this world of baseball.
Yeah. Looking at the routine a little bit more specifically, we kind of switched gears over the last month and well over the next 2 months, especially leading up to the tryouts. Do you want to speak about how we've kind of worked on converting that that movement quality and that strength, not necessarily the foundation that we've developed, but we've developed a much stronger strength, yes, I would say a stronger strength base over the last, 4 or 5 months at this point. You've
Yeah.
had a pretty extensive off
It's been a
season,
long off season.
and we basically have, 3 months where we could work on converting that strength into speed and power to maximize our power output, our specific movement patterns and power output and speeds that are, we're going to encounter on the actual baseball field by the time tryouts and spring training and your season rolls around. So
Yeah.
you want to talk about what we're working on in your training right now?
Yeah, so right now, we're still progressing some of my strength and at least maintaining it, but a lot of it has been contrasted. So if we look
Yeah.
at the force velocity curve, doing something on the ends of absolute speed paired with absolute strength. So for example, doing like a very heavy prowler push, for example, a sled push paired with a sprint, or doing a heavy reverse lunge with a split squat jump, or a bench press or a Swiss bar press paired with a supine med ball press, or something along those lines to give people a better visual of what we're doing, and just working both ends of the spectrum. And it's a great way to stimulate the body, that's for sure. And I think another huge change I've made is realizing, especially when I'm doing contrast training, because it's so taxing on the central nervous system to, with the strength quality movement, not go RPE of 12 out of 10 and completely max out where I can't do any more. I think that was a huge mistake that I was making, and then I figured out why I was burning myself out and why I was so fatigued so constantly.
Yeah, it's funny because it was a mistake that I wasn't even aware you were making until we started having this conversation last week. And yeah, definitely you can understand why you were burnt out a little bit, maybe why you
Felt
weren't fully
terrible.
recovering. But yeah, it's like when you get into contrast training, it's not like you need, 3 to 4 to 5 sets. I mean, you could hit a couple of one or maybe 2 primer sets, and then you want to build up to the appropriate load prior to contrasting with a power movement, and
Yeah.
hit 2 top end sets, and you're with plenty of rest in between, so you can maximize that power output, right? And you're good to go.
100%, man.
Yeah.
And it's kind of trying to find that balance of, obviously being stimulated enough and getting the effect and the adaptation that you're trying to acquire, but not totally burning yourself out. So, on the topic of like power development in particular, I think less is always going to be more. So that you fight against and mitigate against, fatigue. So, for example, I think, it depends on the day, and this is where you really come into play, Kip, is helping me figure out what the appropriate volume is for everything. And I think with the strength exercises, we've done a really good job of, rep schemes and sets. But I think for the plyometric exercise, I think we found that the best strategy is always to go less. So a lot of the plyometric movements that we were pairing with the strength-based movements were sets of 5, and a lot of it was like single leg work in particular. And I think moving that down to 2 or 3 sets per leg, especially on single leg work, like lateral height-ins or any kind of bounding or box blasts or split squat jumps, doing sets of 3 instead is really helping mitigate that fatigue, but still get that benefit that we're trying to get.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that pretty much kind of sums up where you are right now in your off-season training, and like you said, looking forward to big things coming next month with your first tryout in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Danny Wiz, first podcast appearance in 2 years, right? Wearing rocking the Triton College sweatshirt right now, but you're not a Triton right now. You've been all over the place. You've 3 years in college, three different junior colleges, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Let's talk about your journey, right? So you started off at Triton. You want to talk about your experience at Triton, and then kind of how you progressed to Parkland, and then where you are at Milwaukee Tech right now.
Yeah,
All
for
right.
sure. So coming out of high school, I initially went down to Triton College and played there in the fall, in the spring, and that was the COVID year. So we got through maybe 10, 12 games before everything got shut down, and kind of over quarantine, I figured out that wasn't a place that I was really happy at, and kind of needed to make a change. So I ended up transferring that next year to Parkland College down in Champaign, and spent the year there, pitched in maybe 10 innings, and kind of realized that it wasn't a place where I was going to get the opportunity that I needed to play at the next level, and then also injuries kind of played a role, and wasn't totally healthy by the end of the year, and ended up having a partial tear in my UCL. So the fall of this past year, I got a PRP injection in my elbow. I took the fall semester off to rehab, and then this spring I'm now at Milwaukee Area Technical College.
How's everything going up in Milwaukee Tech right now?
I'm liking it. I mean, it's a good group of dudes. I like the coaches. I'm able to train kind of how I want, which is a big part of why I went there, and hopefully get back on the mound soon and get the opportunities,
Why don't you talk and just touch a little bit upon like what that was like with your UCL injury and the PRP injection, kind of explain a little bit more about it and unpack, because a lot of people probably don't know what that is.
Yeah, so I mean, PRP shot is more or less they take out some blood from you, put it into a big old fancy machine and spin it for a couple minutes, and I don't totally know the science behind it, but it's able to separate like all the different parts of your blood. And
Yeah.
what they do is then go in with a needle, take out the plasma, which is like the healing part, and then they go into your elbow and more or less just inject up and down like the ligament, and kind of coat it with that plasma to help stimulate some healing there.
Nice. What are your thoughts about it, and what was the recovery process like after it?
I mean, it worked for the most part. I was able to kind of come, so they put you in one of the big old braces like you see guys having after they have Tommy John, and kind of immobilize it for a week or so, and then have the brace on, and they kind of unlock it so you're able to move a little bit, and then from there it was kind of going along and trying to get mobility back, and once the mobility came back, it was moving on to strength and rebuilding everything that I'd kind of lost over the time that I was hurt.
Yeah, you went to see Dr. David Fu as well. We referred you out to him to get the rehab done on your elbow. Can you talk about that process and some of the things that he had focused on with you and kind of the progression and ramp up period that got you back up to 100%, or you're kind of at a point where you're nearly at 100%, like you had mentioned that you're going to be thrown off the mound in the next week or two here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he like I kind of mentioned, the big initial step was getting the mobility and kind of the movement back in my arm. Like, you know, being locked up in a brace for a couple weeks, it was kind of lost some just movement in general. Like the range of motion wasn't as good as it's kind of was supposed to be, and once I was able to get that back, it was going to kind of figure out things that had potentially caused the injury. Like there was, I didn't have some of the rotation that I needed, and Dave was really good in kind of helping me figure that out and kind of how to progress and get some ranges of motion back that I needed, and then build strength from there and kind of continue on with that.
Okay.
How, just one last follow-up question. How were you able to still progress and stay connected with baseball even through, the weeks and months after your initial PRP injection? Because I saw you in here doing stuff, so what were you still doing to progress in baseball?
It was definitely a challenge, but you kind of, mentally you kind of need to do what you can.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to stay involved when pretty much you can't do any throwing, you can't do any upper body exercises, so kind of just trying to fit in any lower body mobility or any lower body lifting that I could do was something that I kind of felt like I needed to do, A, to keep my body ready for when I was healthy, and B, to just kind of stay involved and stay sane through the recovery process.
Yeah.
I think I admire you a lot, and I definitely can relate, with other injuries that I've had, and figuring out, where there's a will, there's a way. And, I respect you and admire you for still getting in here and getting your work in, because most people, when they have an injury, they're just, nope, can't do anything. And then, especially mentally, it screws with you so much, and it's hard to get back to that place where you were. So making sure that you're still doing something when you're injured, obviously being safe and doing things that are high reward, low risk, is the key. But I really admire you for that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And just staying in the habit of it is a big part, because it's hard to go from, baseball activities 6 days a week to none, and then trying to get back into the groove of it, just 100%. To be able to keep doing something and stay mentally sharp with it.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, staying mentally sharp and, having the mentality that, like you said, if there's a will, there's a way. There's, you have to find a way to get the goal accomplished or to get closer to your goals. So there's always something you could do, regardless of what your restrictions are. I mean, you were on an arm brace for what, 4 to 6 weeks, if not longer, if I'm correct there?
It was 2 to 3.
2 to 3. I mean, 2 to 3. I mean, still, yeah,
two
to 3 weeks. Yeah, you could have easily just, you could stay at home and sulked, and you chose not to. You chose to find a way to train, and you train your lower body, and even if it means use it as specialty. We already use specialty bars like safety bars, but even if you can't load an unknown place, there's plenty of guys around here that will help you do things like that. So you got to take advantage of those opportunities to still maintain a training effect at the very minimum, right? And even if you have kind of other limitations, whether it's in nutrition and recovery, well, it's like focus a little bit more time and attention in those areas, bring those parts up to speed, so once you are 100% full go, right, your training is just going to be that much better the next time through, right?
Absolutely.
So training program is good right now. Said you're going to be throwing a bullpen next week.
Yeah, right now I'm shooting for. I threw my first pen this past week. It went pretty well. I'm shooting for 2 this upcoming week, Monday, Thursday, and then from there, hopefully like a live session, and then be ready to go for games.
Okay. And the season started for you guys a couple of weeks ago, right? So you're hoping to be back with the team in the next week or two, traveling with the team. And do you see yourself, are you going to be fitting into the rotation, or are you going to play more of a specific role as a relief pitcher or a closer, whatever it may be?
However I gotta do it.
Yeah.
I'm really just gonna be happy to be back. So,
yeah.
I mean, initially I'm assuming some sort of relief bullpen role, and as I can kind of build volume and get my arm strength up to where I want it to be, hopefully
Definitely.
Hopefully at least get a chance to crack the rotation.
Right, right. I'm sure you'll be very happy to get some time on the mound this year because I know it's been a while from you and you're definitely getting the itch. But so like, what are your goals after this year? Like we had mentioned, it's your third junior college in 3 years now. I'm sure you don't want to be at a junior college for a fourth season.
Absolutely.
Where are you hoping to go play maybe this summer, or maybe you're looking to play at a higher level going into college next year?
Yeah, from that standpoint, I mean, really, this summer is going to be kind of, the approach will depend kind of how the rest of the spring goes. I mean, obviously I'd love to be playing somewhere, but if the best option for me is to just train and do that, take that route, that's what I'm going to do. But whatever gets me prepared for next year, whatever's going to be best.
Awesome, man. Looking forward to big things from you this season. On to Big Tom. Big Tom Kanzimi is in the house. Division II, Quincy University, lefty pitcher. Tom, what's going on, man?
Not much.
How we doing? So are you back in town for the weekend?
Yeah, back in town for the weekend.
Yep.
Figure I'd come back, figure some stuff out,
Yeah.
head back Sunday.
Yeah, what do we got going on at Quincy now? What's the story?
The story at Quincy is I'm stuck behind a bunch of dogs.
Yeah.
That's the story. So basically, going into Quincy,
Yep.
I was sitting 78 to 80, which is not good.
Not
Right.
gas.
Is this 2 years ago?
This
Right,
was
this
3 years ago.
3 years ago now.
2019 to 2020.
Okay.
So COVID year was my freshman year. So went in 78 to 80, not throwing gas. Sophomore year after COVID, sitting 80, 82. This year, big jump in velo, sitting 46, and I've hit 87 a couple times. But we got some dogs on
Yeah.
Quincy University baseball roster.
Okay.
So I'm on the varsity team, not traveling, most likely not going to get any playing time. So right now it's just playing the inter squads, carve some people up, whole
Yeah.
name it's called.
Okay.
Yeah, man. Why don't you speak to what you're doing? Because I've been in that situation before too, where where you're at a solid college, whatever division it is, and one of the top level schools, and you feel like you're a solid player, but not getting much playing time. What are some things that you're doing in order to stay sharp, mentally and physically, in order to make sure that you are ready once your time is called?
Yeah. So mentally, I got to pass my classes. That's
huge.
That's
Highly overlooked.
That's goal number one. If you are not eligible, you are not going to play anywhere.
Yep.
So pass my classes, and then I write. So it's at school. I have a little calendar, and so every day on the calendar it says lift, throw, and then class. So I check off each one after I've done that. So so we have inter squads on Tuesday. So my arm needs to be ready to go Tuesday. I'll throw a bullpen Friday or Saturday, and then in between that, I need to make sure that I lift every day, at least 4 days a week, and I need to throw definitely every day. Maybe give myself a day off after I throw live.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I'm doing, just kind of doing stuff on my own. But
Yeah. Are you treating, say when you guys have inter squads, do you basically treat that as like your game and make sure you're 100% for that?
yeah, that's basically my game, whether it's 1 inning or 2 innings, just because we're not going to have a 4-hour inter squad.
Yeah.
Where 17 dudes need to throw 4 innings. But yeah, that's kind of my game. And then Quincy also has a JV team, so I was with them my freshman, sophomore year. And then I'll probably get a couple games with them. Maybe if there's a midweek game for varsity that I'm not going to play with, I'll go down and play. I'll start a game for JV.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's smart. I think that's one area where I lacked is when I came into college, especially since like I didn't have class, like from 8 o'clock till 3:30 or whatever, like high school. I had a lot more time to do like training. So I would do all this extra training before practice would even start, but I didn't realize, especially like my freshman year fall, that's like the first time the coaches really get to see you. Sure, like when they recruit you, like for me, they saw some video and they saw me play at like, a showcase or some games, and like But that's the first time they get to see you play day in and day out, and your first impression is so huge on the coaching staff. And I didn't really take advantage or realize that I should have been treating every single practice basically as like my tryout, because that's essentially what it was. But I didn't realize that, so I would show up to practice, I'd be so tired and burnt out. I would have already lifted really heavy, taken extra swings, like done so much other extra work that by the time practice came, I was burnt out and my performance really suffered. You know, so if you're definitely fighting for a spot and you know that you're not definitely going to be a starter, you really need to treat practice, especially if you're a freshman or if you're in a, you know, at a new school, or if you're in a position like you are where you're really fighting for some playing time, that you're 100% and you treat, you know, inter squads and practices like the most important thing. Because if you have a couple good showings, that, you know, it's crazy, you know, it might sound crazy, but that can really change a coach's perspective on you and your role with the team.
Oh yeah, 100%. If you go out in an inter squad for 2 weeks in a row and you shove, and a dude gets hurt or someone's not performing, your name will get called.
Yeah.
Especially as a new guy on campus, I think that's a big point that you made, Declan. Like it's hard sometimes going into the fall at a new place, like especially as a freshman, because there's well-established guys already there, so their fall is more like refining what they do. Obviously they want to perform well, but you kind of see how they handle it, and it's very different from kind of what you need to be doing as a new guy going, and you need to perform and kind of show. It's almost like a tryout, getting ready for the spring.
And like, in the sense of tryout wise, I think a lot of guys may hear that and be like, oh man, that's a lot of pressure. But you also got to think, you know, when you're going to tryouts or showcase, usually maybe it's 1, 2, 3 or 4 days. If, you know, that's awesome. That's a great showcase or tryout that you're going to. When it's a whole fall, you have so much more time to showcase what you can do. So if you have 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 bad, like, it's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? You have so many opportunities, but you need to keep it in mind that it's like the most important thing, most important part of your day. Yeah. Tom, why don't you speak a little bit, because you've talked a little bit about your velo jump, what you did different, you know, because I've known you for 5, 6 years and whatnot, and you've always been a solid pitcher, but you made a really significant gain of velocity. And I just want to know what was different this off season and what you attribute that mostly to.
Yeah, so last year, so COVID year hit, and I gained a bunch of weight, bad weight. Like I was 225 at 5'10". Like I was not a good looking dude.
Mass equals gas?
No, it does not.
Not too much mass, okay.
But so going into my sophomore year, I wanted to shed all of that bad weight. So I think that getting leaner. So right now I'm 175, in between 175 and 180. So I think getting down and getting lean and moving better definitely attributed that, a big chunk of that. But definitely being in the weight room every single day, throwing every single day, just having a routine. Like you've seen me come in here over the winter. Like I have a routine. I come in, maybe I'll use the massage gun for a little bit, loosen up the arm, roll out, stretch, and then I'll throw, and then I'll lift. Because I don't like, personally, this is a personal thing, I don't like to lift before I throw. Yeah. Because then it's, like, everything feels lighter than it is. I don't know. It's just a weird thing that I have, but definitely getting into the weight room and taking lifting very, very seriously.
That's good. Yeah, I think all three of us are probably on the same boat of, I like to get my skill work done before, you know, I lift. I think all three of us are pretty strong guys. We move decent enough. You know, we're not the greatest movers, especially not me, but like we're good enough. Danny's pretty significant mover, but either way, I think all of us can kind of touch upon that. We all agree that we prioritize our skill work over lifting. Not saying that we don't go hard at lifting, but if there is something that is gonna suffer throughout our training day or week, I'd rather be the weight stuff in the weight room and my strength work as opposed to my throwing velocity or my hitting velocity, especially max effort skill work, you know, max effort hitting, live at bats, throwing, max effort sprint work. I highly encourage people to do that before their strength work.
Yeah, so the way I think about it is you can lift 1,000 pounds, but if you can't hit a baseball, it doesn't matter. Like you can lift 2 tons, but if you can't throw a strike or you can't hit a fastball, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, it definitely can help. but you need to refine like those skills so that you can utilize and tap into all that strength and power and movement quality that you've worked on so hard throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the biggest things we talk about before starting an off-season training program is like what are the different phases of training and what are we going to focus on and prioritize, right? So as we've progressed over the course of the off-season and season comes closer, then we're going to kind of put some certain things on the back burner, especially like medicine ball throws, because your volume and hitting and throwing, and like we said, other skill workers are going to be picking up pretty significantly. So we don't want to continually add and all that stress on top of stress. We want to be able to consolidate that stress as much as possible. And like you said, if you have to give 100% effort towards hitting and throwing and fielding and sprinting demands, and I think that's going to become more of the focus and priority over kind of like lifting at that point. Especially for you guys going into the season right now. I mean, Tom, for you, because of like your specific role, you can continue to go in the weight room and train at a much higher intensity. And you're, on days that you have bullpens, say for example, if it's going to be on a Monday and a Thursday or a Tuesday or a Friday, however you go about scheduling that, then that your high intensity days should align with those bullpen days because they're very intense training days, right? And want to maximize your recovery work in between. Danny, it's going to be the same for you, obviously. Now that you're getting back up on the mound here over the next couple of weeks and you're progressing to 2 bullpens during the course of the week, but you're going to be actually throwing in a couple of weeks, so, and you don't know what role you're going to play, so it's like, how do you take advantage of getting into the weight room depending on what you did over the course of a week, so
another big thing that I prioritized was recovery. Because back in high school, I'd maybe do bands, I'd throw, and then maybe I'd ice afterwards. But now
the game has changed a lot, right? I mean, you take a look at the recovery center just right next door.
The routine is much different. So I'd get done with lifting or whatever. I'd come back. I'd hit that awesome recovery center that we got. Heat pad. Leg sleeves. Mark Pro. Maybe sit in the sauna for 20 minutes. And then that is how I end the day. I have to recover, because if you don't recover, you're not going to be ready for tomorrow. If you're not ready for tomorrow, then you're not going to be ready to play.
And we didn't even talk about sleep and nutrition, but I mean, we've done, multiple podcasts in the past that have been, specifically dedicated to recovery. So, I mean, that's a whole nother podcast we can go into. But, I mean, if you want to talk about some of your favorite recovery strategies, by all means.
Yeah, I think just the biggest one, I mean, is got to be sleep. That's something that I neglected throughout high school and the beginning stages of college, and it was interesting once I started getting 9 to 10 hours of sleep a night how much better my performance was. I remember telling my assistant coach at Concordia, Chicago, who's now the head coach, Colin Connor, and I told him, and I was like, man, since you told me to sleep more, and I have been, wow, I feel so much better, and like I'm hitting better. He's like, oh, it's a game changer. I'm like, man, why have I been doing this my whole life? And it was having that discipline to pull back and do a little bit less, which is really hard, and I still struggle to do to this day. But sleep, and then using the recovery modalities that we do have to help speed up the process, like Normatec, Mark Pro, sauna, and Biomat. And Kip, you can open your level 1 bar if you want to.
Thank you. Excuse the noise in the background, but I'm getting pretty hungry right now. So
we'll just keep that in.
Finished the workout about an hour ago, and I'm begging for food, but keep going.
What else? What else for recovery? I'm trying to think. I think sleep is probably just the biggest one, man. Quite honestly, for me, that's one I'll always harp upon.
Yeah, sleep's definitely there. I'd say for older guys, probably in college, try to limit going out to maybe 1 day a week.
Yeah.
Like 3-day weekend benders.
They
ruin your body. They ruin your body.
And it's like you got to keep the goal and have the discipline. I'm not saying don't go out with your buddies and whatnot, but at the same time, you need to know.
Not when you're in high school.
Not when you're in high school.
Definitely not when you're in high school.
If I find out you're doing that when you're in high school, I'll kick your ass.
Okay, Kip. And Kip's a pretty strong guy.
Yeah, I wouldn't mess with Kip.
But Danny, you're a smart man. You got yourself a Mark Pro a few years ago.
Oh yeah.
All right, and I mean, it's take it on the road with you too.
Probably one of the best baseball investments I've made in my life. I think I got it. It's either sophomore or junior year of high school, and I've taken that thing with me pretty much every road trip that I figured I was gonna pitch at. I've used it in high school road trips. When we went out to Arizona my freshman year, like that thing has traveled with me to probably 5 to 10 different states to help with recovery after throwing.
Yeah, especially as like if you're in a relief role and you don't know when you're gonna pitch, you know what I mean, to help expedite and speed up the recovery process. It's so crucial, man. And if you have access to it, I just don't know why you even neglect it. I think some guys just don't have the discipline to understand the benefits or learn about what can actually help them get that 1% better, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm. Well,
anything else?
yeah. So Tom and Declan, before the show even started, you guys were kind of talking about you eventually want to get into indie ball. Danny, I'm sure you want to get into indie ball. You guys want to continue to progress past college and make your way toward the pro level. What are some of the pieces of advice you gave to these guys as far as after their college playing career?
Yeah, some of the big things are realizing to keep the goal a goal. I've played with a good amount of guys like myself that didn't really get a full season of college playing time until, say, their senior year. They only got 1 year playing time, whether it was because of injury or because of COVID or, you know, not getting the shot or opportunity, a whole host of different issues. So one of the things was, you know, not dwelling too much. Yeah, it sucks if you're not playing every day or it takes you a few years to play, but realizing that you need to continue to progress in order to get into indie ball. If you just sulk and get all, you know, sad and woe is me about your problems and why you're not playing and the lack of playing time, and you stop progressing, you have no shot. But I played with a bunch of high-level guys, including one of my buddies, Jared, who I played with this year, and he hit about 320 with about 25 homers in like 50 games, which is pretty significant. And he went to Division II out of high school, and his first 3 years he didn't play, which was pretty surprising because he's like 6'5", 230, and he's huge and hits bombs. But he wound up transferring his senior year and had one good year, and then he got into indie ball, and last year wound up getting moved up to the American Association, which is arguably the highest indie ball league, and is filled with a bunch of high A, double A, and even triple A and MLB players. So that was one of the big things, is even if you're not playing, just continue to progress. And then I think also, you know, something that was huge for me was marketing myself and being my own best advocate and utilizing social media for good. So utilizing Facebook for myself and my personal experience. Facebook, you know, posting stuff on YouTube and Instagram were huge. I also know plenty of buddies who have used Twitter as well to repost and post things of themselves has been really significant. So those were kind of my two pieces of advice. Were, you know, utilize social media for good, and then also just don't lack in progression. You know, even if you're not playing, just continue to progress as best as you can. Quite honestly, so those are my pieces of advice, and it definitely can be done. I didn't think it would be, and then you know, for some reason, thank God I didn't give up, because there's plenty of times when I thought I just should, and I had no idea why I was still playing, but I still had the will and desire to, so I did. And then after, you know, once my senior year ended, I had, you know, multiple different coaches and scouts, you know, a handful of coaches and scouts from multiple different independent leagues reaching out to me to play.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
All right, fellas. I think that just about wraps everything up for today. Anything else you guys would like to add before we close up shop here?
Well, thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
All right, fellas. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Before we wrap up the show, after Declan just kind of went on a rant about his advice that he would offer to you guys, what kind of advice would you offer to high school players that went through the same kind of recruiting process to get to the college level?
I got one big one before you guys go. Go to unless you just want to get like free gear and go to a good school. Go to a school where you're realistically going to play. I've seen a lot of guys go to like really high level schools, including myself, and just not play. It was a miserable and terrible experience. So I wish I would have went JUCO, quite honestly. And I joke with guys, but I'm pretty serious about this. I wish I would have went to kind of a mid to lower level JUCO, play every day, play some solid competition, and then go to like a mid-major or lower Division I, still play good competition, but have a realistic shot to play. Looking back, I probably shouldn't have gone, because at the time Concordia Chicago was arguably the best Division III school, and like I really did not have a shot to play there. You know, in my area, I was a solid player and, you know, a really good player at my high school, but the guys I was playing against, they came from places where like they didn't even play, like they didn't even start on their high school team, and they were better than any guys on my high school team. So it just went to show like the talent gap, and I really I really think you need to keep the goal to goal, and if you really do want to, start your freshman sophomore year, you need to pick a school where you can realistically play. As Kip eats his meat stick.
First form, baby. First form protein bars and meat sticks. We got them in the recovery room. Guys love
No
them.
free ads.
The advice that I would give is, yes, you need to balance out where you're going to play, but also if you know that you're going to be a guy that needs to develop like I was,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to bet on yourself. Like I bet on myself going to Quincy. I'm kind of stuck right now, but that's the decision that I made, and I need to stick with that.
Yeah. 100%.
I love it. Danny, parting words.
I'd say just don't take it for granted, really. Like, it's whatever you want to get out of it, make sure you put in that work. Like, I've kind of gotten that flash of, like, holy shit, like, it could be done really fast, like, over in the blink of an eye. So you just, whether you just want to play for fun or you have serious aspirations of playing at a high level, like, just make sure you're putting into it what you can, so that at the end of the day you can look back and just be proud of what you've done and be happy with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Great stuff. Again, really appreciate you guys coming on the podcast. Best of luck to you this season, and hopefully we'll sit down and revisit with you sometime this summer to kind of see where you guys are, and then again where you're gonna be progressing from there. Guys, if you like the show, please do us a solid. Share it, pass it along if you think somebody would benefit from this. Again, we ask that you please pass it along. We don't have any sponsorships yet for the podcast because I think all but 12 people listen to it. So we hope that it's beneficial to you guys. But our goal is to grow the show organically and help as many people as we can.
Sir.
All right, fellas.
Thanks, Kip.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.